Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever realized that the loudest words in the room are not always the most powerful? That sometimes the strongest statement you can make is not spoken at all. Imagine holding all the control, all the power, and all the closure without saying a single word. Today, I'm going to show you why your silence can be the closure they never expected, why refusing to react can be your ultimate weapon, and how stepping back can put you miles ahead of anyone trying to pull you into chaos. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will change the way you see power, respect, and freedom forever. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine for a moment the weight of words. Imagine the power that lies not in what we say, but in what we choose not to say. Too often, we believe that responding, reacting, explaining, or justifying is the only way to reclaim control, to assert ourselves, to gain closure. But closure, real closure, doesn't come from arguments. It doesn't come from debates, from proving people wrong, or from seeking validation. True closure, the kind that changes the way you move through the world, comes from one simple, radical act: silence. Silence is not weakness, silence is not giving up. Silence is the conscious decision to step away from a situation that no longer serves you, from relationships that drain your energy, from conversations that try to define your worth through someone else's eyes. Silence is strength. It is the unspoken statement that your peace matters more than their approval, that your growth is more important than their understanding. And here's the fascinating part: your silence becomes a closure they never expected. Why? Because they were expecting a reaction. They were waiting for you to argue, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong. But when you refuse to engage in the way they anticipate, when you don't give them the drama they crave, you take back the power. You create a space where their expectations crumble, where their control over your emotions disappears. And in that space, you find freedom. It's tempting, isn't it, to justify yourself, to tell your side, to explain your perspective, to seek recognition for the truth you carry. But the truth is, explanations are fleeting, and people rarely see them as intended. What they do notice, what they cannot ignore, is your composure. What they cannot control is the calm assurance of someone who has chosen silence over chaos. Your quiet is louder than their noise. Your peace speaks in a language that defies confrontation and commands respect. Think about the last time someone wronged you, hurt you, or dismissed you. You probably spent hours, maybe even days, replaying the moments in your head, drafting responses, imagining comebacks. Now consider how different it felt when you chose not to respond at all, when you refused to give your energy to the conflict, when you stepped back and simply let it be. That act, that deliberate choice of silence, was more powerful than any argument you could have made. That was your closure. Closure is not about changing their mind. Closure is not about proving them wrong. Closure is about reclaiming your own narrative. It's about deciding that their actions will no longer dictate your emotions, your choices, or your self-worth. When you stop trying to control how others perceive you, when you stop reacting to their provocations, you discover something extraordinary. You become the author of your own peace. And here is the secret that few people realize: silence forces reflection. It forces the other person to reckon with their own actions, because they are no longer met with the immediate reaction they expect. Your silence holds a mirror up to them in a way that words never can. It is a subtle yet profound form of leadership, not over others, but over yourself. It is a demonstration of emotional intelligence, of self-discipline, of courage. So, the next time you are confronted with anger, injustice, or someone trying to draw you into conflict, remember this: responding is optional, engaging is optional, justifying is optional. What is not optional is your commitment to your own growth, your own peace, your own purpose. Your silence is not emptiness. It is an affirmation of your values, a declaration that your life is not dictated by others' expectations, and a reminder that your strength lies in restraint, in wisdom, in quiet resolve. This is the power you hold when you choose silence. It is the power to close chapters without a fight. It is the power to walk away with dignity. It is the power to live a life defined not by other people's opinions, but by your own intentions and convictions. And in that quiet, in that deliberate stillness, you discover something remarkable, the closure they never expected, but that you always deserved. Now, let's take a moment to really unpack what it means to wield silence as your strength. Silence is not passive, it is intentional. It is a conscious act of self-mastery. When you refuse to engage in the back and forth of conflict, you are making a choice to prioritize your energy, your time, and your mental clarity. Every word you don't waste, every argument you don't enter, is a deposit into your own well-being. You are investing in a version of yourself that cannot be shaken by the opinions of others, a version that is grounded in self-respect and inner peace. People often think that they need to react to be heard. They think that if they don't speak, their truth will be lost, that their dignity will be diminished. But that is a misconception. In reality, your silence communicates something far more powerful. It communicates confidence. It communicates that you are secure enough in who you are that you do not need to defend yourself to anyone. It communicates that you recognize your own value and that your worth is not contingent upon someone else's understanding or approval. When you master silence, you master influence in its purest form, because influence is not about noise. It is about presence. Consider this: every time someone tries to provoke you, they are essentially asking for a reaction. They are testing your boundaries, pushing your buttons, and hoping to elicit an emotional response. But when you choose silence, you deny them that satisfaction. You remove the fuel for their fire, and in doing so, you send a quiet but undeniable message. You are in control of your emotions. You are in control of your actions. You are in control of your life. The irony is that while they are focused on trying to affect you, it is you who holds the power. It is your restraint, your calm, and your refusal to be drawn into chaos that speaks volumes. Silence also allows clarity. When we react impulsively, we often cloud our judgment. Words said in anger or frustration can cause more harm than the initial offense ever did. By choosing silence, you create the space to reflect, to evaluate, and to respond, or not respond, with wisdom. You are giving yourself the gift of perspective, the ability to see the bigger picture, and the opportunity to act in alignment with your long-term goals rather than short-term impulses. Silence is not avoidance, it is strategy. It is the art of choosing your battles, and more importantly, choosing yourself. Let me share something else that is remarkable about silence. It transforms relationships, including your relationship with yourself. When you stop trying to control how others perceive you, you start to live authentically. You stop shaping your behavior to fit someone else's expectations. You stop seeking approval or validation because you realize that your worth is inherent, not earned. This self-respect radiates outward, and people notice it, even if they don't immediately understand it. Silence becomes a mirror, not just for them, but for you, a reflection of the person you are becoming, calm, intentional, grounded, and resilient. And there is a profound lesson in patience here. Silence teaches patience because it asks you to resist the immediate urge to respond. It reminds you that not everything needs a reaction, not every slight deserves attention, and not every battle is yours to fight. Patience is a quiet form of power because it allows time to reveal truth, to expose character, and to test the authenticity of intentions. It allows situations to resolve themselves in ways that words often cannot. Sometimes the passage of time, coupled with your silence, becomes the most eloquent statement you could ever make. Think about this. The people who tried to hurt you, to provoke you, or to undermine you, they were expecting noise. They were expecting drama, but you gave them something entirely different. You gave them composure. You gave them peace. You gave them a reminder that your life is your own, and that your energy cannot be hijacked. In that space, something incredible happens. You start to realize that your happiness is not dependent on the reactions of others. Your sense of self is not contingent upon their approval. Your inner peace is unshakable, and that is a form of freedom that words can never create. Your silence becomes a form of leadership, too. People are drawn to those who can maintain composure when the world around them is chaotic. People respect those who have the discipline to stay calm when provoked. People trust those who act from reflection rather than reaction. And the most powerful aspect of all this is that this leadership is not about controlling others. It is about controlling yourself. It is about showing through your actions what it means to live with integrity, intentionality, and self-respect. Finally, silence is closure, true closure, not the kind that comes from arguing or explaining, but the kind that comes from walking away with your dignity intact. The kind that comes from knowing that your life is not dictated by someone else's actions, words, or opinions. When you embrace silence, you are not ignoring the past. You are transcending it. You are no longer bound by the expectations of those who did not understand, did not care, or did not value your perspective. You are free to define your life on your own terms, to pursue your purpose without distraction, and to cultivate peace in a way that no one else can disrupt. Now, consider the ripple effect of your silence. It's not just about one interaction, one conflict, or one moment in time. Your silence has the power to redefine the way people perceive you, to shift the energy in your environment, and to change the trajectory of your relationships. When you respond with composure, when you withhold the words they expected, you are modeling something extraordinary. You are modeling self-mastery. You are showing that your life is governed not by impulsive reactions, but by conscious decisions, and that example is contagious. People around you begin to realize that there is another way to handle conflict, another way to navigate challenges, and another way to assert power without aggression. Silence also teaches resilience. Every time you choose not to react to provocation, every time you resist the temptation to engage in drama, you are strengthening your inner armor. You are proving to yourself that your peace is more important than your pride, that your growth is more valuable than being understood in the moment. And over time, this resilience compounds. You start noticing that you are no longer shaken by minor offenses, no longer distracted by the noise of negativity, and no longer controlled by the expectations of others. Your silence becomes a shield, and your calm becomes a source of energy that fuels your purpose rather than drains it. Think about the people who have tried to diminish you, to question your worth, or to provoke a reaction. Imagine how unsettling it must be for them when they realize that their attempts are ineffective. They expected engagement, they expected tension, they expected a display of vulnerability or frustration. But when you respond with silence, you disrupt the pattern, you break the cycle, you deny them the validation of your reaction, and in doing so, you reclaim the narrative. You are no longer playing by their rules, you are defining your own. And there is a quiet satisfaction in that, a deep, unshakable confidence that only comes from knowing you are in control of your life, not anyone else. Your silence is also a testament to your focus. In a world that constantly demands attention, where drama is often amplified, the ability to remain quiet is an act of prioritization. It says, I will not let distractions dictate my actions. I will not let others' agendas hijack my energy. I will not compromise my vision for the sake of temporary confrontation. When you make this choice consistently, you begin to attract opportunities, relationships, and experiences that align with your values, while the chaos and negativity naturally fall away. Silence becomes a filter, a way to separate what truly matters from what doesn't, and in that space you gain clarity, purpose, and direction. And let's not underestimate the power of reflection that silence brings. When you step back, when you refrain from immediate reactions, you give yourself the chance to observe, to analyze, and to understand. You start to see patterns, motives, and consequences that were invisible in the heat of the moment. You gain insight into not only others, but also yourself. You realize where you've been reactive in the past, where you've allowed external forces to control your emotions, and where you have the power to change. Silence is the doorway to self-awareness, and self-awareness is the foundation for true growth. There is also a profound emotional intelligence in silence. Emotional intelligence is not about suppressing emotions. It is about understanding and managing them. By choosing silence, you demonstrate an extraordinary level of emotional control. You are not denying your feelings, you are simply choosing when, how, and if they will be expressed. This ability commands respect. It teaches others that influence is not about volume, that authority is not about domination, and that strength is not measured by how loudly you can speak, but by how well you can listen, observe, and act with intention. Consider the subtle power of anticipation that silence creates. When people realize that you are not predictable, that you do not react on demand, that your actions are deliberate rather than reflexive, they begin to take notice. They reconsider their approach, they reflect on their own behavior, and in many cases, they are forced to confront the consequences of their actions. Your silence has a way of exposing truth, revealing character, and shifting dynamics without a single word. It is influence in its purest form, and it cannot be manufactured through noise, argument, or insistence. Finally, silence allows you to preserve dignity. Words spoken in anger, frustration, or defensiveness often leave scars that time cannot erase. Silence, on the other hand, leaves an imprint of integrity. It communicates to the world that you are anchored, that you are deliberate, that you are untouchable by petty provocations. In every interaction where you choose not to react, you are building a legacy of self-respect. You are demonstrating to yourself and to others that your life is not a series of reactions, but a sequence of intentional choices. And that, perhaps more than anything, is the ultimate closure, the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you control your story, that your peace is non-negotiable, and that the life you live is dictated by your values, not by anyone else's expectations. Now, let's explore what happens when silence becomes not just a reaction, but a lifestyle. When it becomes your default response, a guiding principle in how you navigate life, it changes the way the world interacts with you and the way you interact with the world. You start to notice that silence is magnetic. It draws attention without demanding it. It earns respect without seeking it. People are naturally drawn to those who are calm, deliberate, and composed, because there is an unmistakable sense of certainty in such presence, a sense that says, this person knows who they are. They are not swayed by chaos, they are intentional in every step they take. Silence also teaches you discernment. When you stop reacting to every provocation, every slight, and every misunderstanding, you begin to see which battles are truly worth your energy, and which ones are distractions. You learn to identify people who are genuinely aligned with your values versus those who seek only to drain your focus and test your patience. Your silence becomes a lens through which you evaluate situations, a filter that allows clarity to emerge from the noise. And once clarity emerges, decisions become easier, priorities sharper, and life begins to feel less chaotic and more purposeful. There is profound power in the restraint silence demands. It is not easy to hold back a response when emotions are high. It is not easy to remain calm when someone seeks to provoke you or diminish your worth. But every time you choose silence over reaction, you are reinforcing a habit of self-control. You are proving to yourself that your life is not dictated by circumstances, by opinions, or by other people's expectations. You are asserting with quiet confidence that your focus, your energy, and your peace are non-negotiable. This is not passive. This is power exercised with precision. Silence also gives you the ability to truly listen. When you are not focused on crafting a response or defending yourself, you can pay attention to what is really being said, to what is being implied, and even to what is left unsaid. Listening with this kind of presence allows you to understand motivations, to recognize patterns, and to see opportunities for growth that would otherwise be invisible. In fact, silence often teaches more than words ever could. It teaches patience, empathy, and perspective. It teaches the art of timing, the difference between speaking to be heard and speaking to be understood. Think about the people who have tried to push your buttons in the past. How much power did you give them by reacting immediately, by justifying, or by defending? Every reaction, no matter how small, reinforces a cycle in which someone else dictates your emotional state. But when you choose silence, you break that cycle. You reclaim your authority. You demonstrate that your inner world is not theirs to control. And over time, this becomes transformative not just for you, but for everyone around you. People begin to sense that they cannot manipulate or provoke you, and this changes the dynamics of every relationship. Silence is also an investment in your long-term reputation. Words spoken in haste can be regretted for years. Words held with intention endure with respect. Your silence signals integrity. It signals that you are deliberate, thoughtful, and measured. It communicates that your actions are rooted in purpose, not impulse. And when others recognize this, they begin to trust you more deeply. They begin to seek your guidance, respect your boundaries, and value your perspective. Silence in this sense is not the absence of communication. It is the presence of wisdom. There is a unique kind of empowerment in choosing when to speak and when not to. People will constantly test this boundary. They will attempt to provoke, to manipulate, or to draw you into conflict. And here is the remarkable truth: your silence is the strongest response. It disrupts expectations. It forces reflection. It challenges assumptions. And while words can inflame, silence can calm. While words can divide, silence can unite. While words can be misinterpreted, silence can be absolute in its clarity. Your silence is both shield and statement, both retreat and advance, both closure and revelation. Consider, too, the internal transformation that occurs when silence becomes your practice. You begin to understand that you do not need external validation to feel complete. You no longer seek closure from others because you have learned to cultivate it within yourself. Your peace is self-generated, self-maintained, and self-protected. You develop an inner authority that cannot be challenged by misunderstanding, criticism, or judgment. This authority is quiet, but it is unassailable. It does not need to shout to be recognized. It does not need to fight to be respected. And as you embody this authority, you begin to influence the world around you not through noise, but through presence, example, and integrity. Finally, silence is a path to liberation. When you no longer feel compelled to explain, defend, or react, you free yourself from the chains of other people's expectations. You reclaim your mental and emotional space. You reclaim your time. You reclaim your energy. You begin to live intentionally, to act with purpose, and to focus on what truly matters: your growth, your values, and your mission. And in this liberation, you discover the ultimate truth. Closure is not something given, it is something claimed. By choosing silence, by mastering restraint, and by prioritizing your own peace, you achieve a closure that no one else could have provided, and one that they never expected.